Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Hey, folks, today's Thursday, February 26, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We tried to tell you Donald Trump and his minions are trying to declare a national state of emergency in order to take over the midterm elections. We'll fill you in on these details. Also, on today's show, the Mississippi Supreme Court has ruled Republicans must redraw lines there because they've been screwing over black voters. But Mississippi is dragging its feet, hoping the Louisiana versus Cali decision is going to bail them out. And black folks in Mississippi are scared to death, but that could decimate black political power in Mississippi and all across the South as well. Folks, the University of Pennsylvania is offering a minor in racism and anti-racism studies in response to what's happening in the country. Also, folks, memorial services. First of all, the funeral services begin today for Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. We'll talk to the owner, Amelie Spankuber of WVON Radio, the only black-owned radio station in Chicago, about his tremendous legacy. Lots to talk about. I'm here in Los Angeles for the NAACP Image Awards. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the fine. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. Yeah, it's all go, y'all. Yeah, it's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now.
Folks, this is a live look from Chicago where Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Is lying in repose at Rainbow Push Coalition. You see right there in this picture, you see former Congressman Bobby Rush. Guys, if y'all could bring the audio down some, please. You're seeing Congressman Bobby Rush there. You're seeing Reverend Al Sharpton. You're seeing Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. I'm not sure of the woman who is standing in between Rush as well as Sharpton. Y'all can pull the music up some. I just need to be a little bit lower. And so, as I said, so today was the first day of the week-long funeral services for Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Again, folks are able to go to Rainbow Push to view his body. They are there greeting them. It started at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time this morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. He will lie in repose today as well as tomorrow. And then on Saturday, there's going to be a caravan traveling from Chicago. So it'll be driven by car from Chicago to South Carolina, where he will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol. You see stepping in right there to speak to Jesse Jackson Jr. and Al Sharpton is Yusef Jackson, a son of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. as well. And so looks like well, that's AP. We can't control the camera. What I saw right there was Jacqueline Jackson. You see Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. You see right next to him is Jonathan Jackson. You see next to him is Santita Jackson. And so folks have been coming to Rainbow Push since 10 a.m. Central Standard Time this morning to pay their respects to the historic civil rights leader who, of course, passed away a week ago Tuesday at the age of 84. You see Mark Thompson there as well. I see Janice, and so many people, so many faces I'm familiar with, of course, who are friends and family of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. And so the public is able to come to Rainbow Push and pay their respects. We have a live stream going on our Black Star Network app as well as our YouTube channel, where you can actually watch this, and it will be, as long as they are live, we will be live as well. And so, again, the funeral services, the week-long funeral services for Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Began today in Chicago. All right, folks, one of the areas where Reverend Jackson always was fighting on behalf was the issue of voting rights. And something is happening right now that we warned everybody was going to take place, and that is Donald Trump and his minions were going to do all they could to steal the election. For the last 6 years, all Donald Trump has done is complain about the 2020 election, saying that it was stolen. Now, keep in mind, other Republicans ran and won. Democrats ran and won, but somehow he was the only person who was impacted by the election. All he has done is yell, rig, rig, rig. Now what we have are some 17 individuals who are now coming forward to claim that China interfered in the 2020 election. So as a result, Donald Trump should receive emergency powers to increase executive oversight of the 2026 midterm elections. They literally are saying that Trump could use the National Emergencies Act to intervene in state-led voting procedures. They argue these drastic measures are necessary to ensure what they call election integrity. Constitutional experts warn that such an action would face immediate and serious challenges in the federal court system. But these folks, they do not care. They are scared to death. Donald Trump said to Republicans last month that you guys got to hold onto the House. If you don't, they're going to impeach me for a third time. He is scared to death of being impeached. Well, if you didn't do anything wrong, why are you scared to get impeached? Because you know you've done some corrupt things since you've been in power. And so that's what we have going on here. My panel, Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University out of Washington, D.C. Reese Colbert, host of Reese Colbert Show on Sirius XM Radio out of Washington, D.C. as well. Glad to have both of you here. Greg, listen, you went to law school, you understand the law, and these folks are down and dirty, they're nasty, they're despicable, and what they are trying to do, this action right here, is all about how can they steal the midterms. He's scared to lose the House and lose the Senate because then he can't pass anything if Democrats control one or both of those chambers. If Democrats control the Senate, They then determine his nominees getting approved. They determine if there's even going to be hearings for federal judges and Supreme Court judges. And so to have 17 of his supporters now floating the possibility of taking over the election, it shows you how desperate and corrupt these people are.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You know, I like what Ilhan Omar is referring to him as President Majnoon, an Arabic word meaning evil, mad, or fanatic. But as you say, I'm looking at the Democracy Now! Report that just dropped a few minutes ago, and he's got all these election deniers in place. This guy, Peter Ticknen, who was the attorney for Tina Peters, we remember, of course, in Colorado, who was trying to throw out the vote, and she's serving a 9-year sentence. He's the one saying, you know, they're going to try to evoke, as you said, the National Emergencies Act and the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. You know, Russell Vought is somewhere around in this, and of course, Steve Bannon filtering around, but they're going to fail. And I'll tell you why they're going to fail, because even though you've got the complete people in the bag for him, like Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito, clearly John Roberts, who we heard in passing Trump refer to during the State of the Union, when he talked about voter ID, said, we got to do something, John, we can't let it happen. Who are you talking to? You're talking to John Roberts. But the lower courts are clearly pushing back. I think now this is where the acid test is going to reveal that there are people, regardless of their political affiliation, that are not going to allow this madman, this Majnoon, to run over all the laws in the United States. I'm optimistic that this is just not going to come to pass.
Well, but here's the thing for me, Reese, and when we were sitting here trying to warn people about this thug being back in power, we kept trying to tell people this is the stuff that they would try to do, what the kind of action they would try to take. And there were a lot of black people and others saying, well, listen, I don't think they're going to go that far. And I'm like, guys, y'all don't understand. These folks do not care about the law. They do not care about the Constitution. They care about power. And so in this Washington Post story, you have these individuals. It's a 17-page executive order where they want to nationalize the elections. And Peter Ticknen, who Greg was talking about, he said, quote, we have a situation where the president is aware that there are foreign interests that are interfering in our election processes, and that the president has to be able to deal with it, including by banning mail-in ballots and inserting voting machines. Really? Are y'all serious? And so here's the problem here, Reese. I recall the 2016 election when intelligence services went to President Obama and Mitch McConnell and congressional leaders and said foreign actors are trying to interfere in the election. McConnell objected to Obama publicly coming out until after the election, and Obama did. Obama should have told Mitch McConnell to go to hell. Then, of course, we saw, and Trump, they say, oh, no, y'all kept saying Russia, Russia, Russia. Oh, it didn't exist. It didn't exist. They kept trying to deflect to China and North Korea and Iran and others. And so then you had a Senate report that actually detailed foreign interference. Senator Marco Rubio was one of the people who was on the panel where they wrote the report. He becomes Secretary of State and act like the report never even existed. These people are liars. They do not care about the Constitution. And I'm telling you, they are going to try to make this thing happen. This is not a bluff. They will try to make it happen, because if they can get away with stealing the election, they absolutely will try.
Well, yeah, Donald Trump ran and he said, just vote for me and you'll never have to vote for me again. That's what he said. Oh, no, I'm not. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Maybe Roland can't hear me. But
okay, guys, Reese, hold on one second. Reese, hold on one second. Guys, Reese, hold on. Reese is talking, guys. I can't hear her. So I need y'all to fix that. I can't hear Reese. So Reese, go ahead and talk. Control room, y'all fix the audio so I can hear. Reese, go ahead. Now I can hear you. Go.
Well, so Donald Trump, when he ran in 2024, he told an audience, just vote for me once, you'll never have to vote again. And so he's already stated what the intentions are, is to lie, cheat, and steal. Every single accusation from this administration is a confession. And so should we be able to successfully make it through the midterms without them lying, cheating, and stealing to the point to where they hold the majority, the first order of business of Democrats needs to be to investigate the 2020 2024 elections. Because if you're saying that it's possible that it happened in the 2020 elections, then goddamn it, I guess it's possible that it happened in 2024 as well. Because what the hell would stop them if they didn't want Donald Trump's ass in there? Why is he sitting in there right now? Or maybe other people like Vladimir Putin or other actors did want Donald Trump in here, and that's why he's sitting in office. And so we can't just disregard what they're saying, because usually they're doing the exact same things they're accusing the other side of doing. And so this is really important. And it is a pretext that they're using to try to steal these elections. And I'll also add, I remember when Andrew Gillum ran in 2020, no, I guess it was 2018, and there was, I'm pretty sure it was a Black woman in Miami-Dade who talked about election interference in that race. And so that was never investigated because, unfortunately, Democrats are too busy half the time. And I know that he wasn't president, Democrats weren't president then, but Democrats have taken the posture that what Donald Trump is saying isn't even possible, because they want to try to engender faith in the election system. Clearly, there are some vulnerabilities here, but I have every single bit of assurance that any vulnerabilities are being exploited by Republicans for the benefit of Republicans. So what we need to know is that we have to get far beyond cheating distance. Whatever they do, we have to come back 10 times harder so that it is impossible to deny the will of the American people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what has to happen, Greg, I think about the movie Remember the Titans, when it said, Herman, leave no doubt. I mean, we have to, who did we have on the show the other day? I think it was I think it was Congressman Jonathan Jackson talking about his dad. He said, we have to overwhelm the voting polls. I mean, we have to make it so hard for these folks to cheat. They'd be like, damn, we're going to have to flip 100, 200, 300,000 votes. We got to put pressure on these folks. And this is no moment for people to sit out. I mean, we say this all the time. I've been seeing these videos of some of these Simple Simons talking about, I didn't vote for Kamala Harris. I didn't vote for Trump because I didn't hear an agenda on police brutality. That's a lie. Didn't hear an agenda on economics. That's a lie. And I'm telling you, what these people want to do, they want to steal it. This Cali decision, we're going to talk coming up next what's happening in Mississippi. They absolutely want to invalidate state races, state Senate, state representative races, congressional races. People need to understand, if there's a national emergency, it is a national Black emergency. Black people need to understand that there is an all-out assault to completely roll us back to pre-1964 Civil Rights Act, 65 Voting Rights Act, 68 Fair Housing Act days. And if these Republicans had their way, they would undo, and we already know they're trying to challenge the 14th Amendment, they will undo the 3 Reconstruction Amendments that were passed by the radical Republicans.
You're absolutely right, Roland. Of course, there are unintended consequences. There always are unintended consequences. In this case, the Constitution is crystal clear. The President of the United States has no authority to interfere in federal elections at the state level. We know, of course, that this draft executive order, which has been kicked around since maybe July, according to this early reporting, we know that it does not have the force of law. It can be ignored. The Colorado Attorney General has already said we will fight them, but it's really almost not necessary to fight them in court because the courts have shown very clearly that they have rejected similar attempts. There's no statutory authority. There's just no way for them to do it. If, however, to your point, they do not only attempt this, but figure out how to bring it off, then of course the other prong becomes the prong that we should already, and Reese, you've already said it, we should already be practicing, which is to literally overwhelm them. As for the chattering class, the talking heads, the YouTubians, and others who are talking silly, maybe they're on the payroll, maybe they're not, the bottom line is this: we will overwhelm you as well. And in overwhelming you, we will use you as the barometer through which we show other Black people and everyone else that this is what weaponized ignorance looks like. We're not going to debate you. We're not going to show you the other side. We're simply going to say you are a tool of white supremacy. And people are going to lose friendships. Well, guess what? Your political backs need to be broken. The unintended consequence, however, is let's just say that they succeed on all fronts and this looks more like Turkey, or this looks more like Iran or somewhere where there are elections, but one candidate wins 90% of the vote, and white supremacy reigns. Well, you know what comes next? Look at American history. There will be a fight. The only question becomes, you want to do it in the ballot box, or do you want to do it in the street? But either way, this white supremacy is on its last legs, and it's behaving that way. They're desperate, and it's showing.
Yeah, they're absolutely
desperate. But can I just say, should it?
Because, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, to your point, Dr. Carr, Democratic governors and AG should be coming out and saying, this is not worth the toilet paper I wipe my ass on, and we will not, under any circumstances, comply with it.
That's right.
Fuck suing. Fuck going to court. You ain't got to go to court. It's illegal. And so at a certain point, we have to get to the point where we, the Democrats that are in charge, just absolutely refuse to comply with illegal orders.
That's right.
The same way that businesses don't comply when Donald Trump says you can't buy houses, or you can't, or what did he said he was going to do an executive order over interest rates. The same way that everybody else ignores Donald Trump's dumb ass when he puts these toothless executive orders out. I would like to start seeing some Democrats do the same as well. It don't always have to come to a lawsuit. Why don't we try that? Why don't we try forcing the administration to sue you into complying with something that's illegal, as opposed to complying with it and then suing them so that you don't have to comply?
That's right.
Yeah, I think right now, I dare say, to your point, Democratic governors, Democratic attorney generals, Democratic election officials, county commissioners, there should be an all-out assault of hell no. That's right. Hell no, we will fight you to the end if you're trying to pull this here. They have to raise the bar, turn this thing into a major thing, because see, again, what Trump likes to do is he wants to throw 3 or 4 or 5 different things. Oh, we're going to attack Iran. They're going to slip this in, and this, and this. And national media, national white media is so stupid. They don't know how to do more than 2 or 3 damn stories at one time. And so they get stuck on it. And see, also, national white media sees this as a game. Oh, they really not going to do that. They really not going to go. No, hell no. Every single time they've done that by saying, no, they really not going to do anything like that, they do it. Every single time. And this right here, they called it. Steve Bannon, after they lost in 2020, Steve Bannon and Greg said, we're going to put our people in the local state boards, county boards of election and the state boards of elections, and we're going to take over the system. That's what folks don't understand. And so they are going to try this. They are going to try this. And what I'm saying to our people, I mean, I saw this, Terrence Woodbury came out with this a survey talking about how young black men really don't see what's happening with Trump as somehow impacting their life. I'm telling you right now, young black men, y'all are wrong. Y'all are wrong. And look, by saying, well, I'm not really feeling it, let me be real clear. It's a lot of stuff that you say you ain't feeling that's actually hitting you, because, see, you have been anesthetized by what's going on. Oh, it's going to hit you. I'm telling everybody watching right now, when this right-wing, ideologically driven Supreme Court rules for the state of rules in the Cali case, when they allow those racists in Louisiana who lost before by creating the 2nd district, when they rule that race cannot be considered in the creation of districts, oh, trust me, you're about to see the loss of black political power. You're going to see it happen. And you know what you're going to end up seeing? You're going to see the budgetary impacts of those black folks not being in power. You're going to see the impact in education. Oh, you're going to see it. And so I need this generation, Greg, to wake their asses up out of this stupor and to understand. Like I was just sitting here. The Houston Chronicle had some video, and the video said 4 black women from Houston discussed the 2026 election fatigue and the frustration of being the backbone of a Democratic Party that seldom rewards their loyalty. Listen, I feel folk on all that. This ain't no time for no damn fatigue. No. And oh, I'm tired. Because way too many ancestors were also tired But we need to really understand, we are sounding this alarm for a reason. What these white supremacists want to lock in is absolutely Jim Crow 2.0.
That's absolutely right. And let's just be very clear. There's a difference between power and the law, as you've said. And we have to be very clear about this. White commercial news entertainment media should be at this point completely ignored, with only one exception, and that is reporting on factual events. Everything else, interpretation, ignore it. Again, this station here, young people, if you got young people in your family, sit them down in front of this station and let's do that. Because we know that when we engage with our young people, they will respond. But we have to engage with them, and we got to do that. Just ignore all the rest of that stuff.
Let me bring up Caleb Bedelia. He's a staff writer with the Marshall Project. Again, we've been talking about what's going on here. And Caleb, you guys have this great story dealing with Mississippi. And it says, Mississippi's black voters brace for SCOTUS to gut their political clout. And you walk through how black folks in Mississippi have been winning in the courts as relates to how they've been racially driven out of power, and the courts have been ruling in their favor. Now, all of a sudden, the courts are ruling by saying, listen, multiple races benefiting African Americans. Now Mississippi is sitting there going, oh, please, let's hold off, because when the Cali decision comes down, we're going to be in the clear. This right here is going to have a devastating impact on black political power in Mississippi and beyond.
Yeah, that's right, Roland. I'm glad to be on the show tonight. And the story that I've reported is about the Mississippi Supreme Court. Mississippi elects Supreme Court justices from a series of 3 different districts, one pretty much in the northern part of the state, one in the middle of the state, and one in the southern part of the state. And there was a lawsuit brought by black voters in Mississippi that said, the districts are drawn in a way that dilutes the power of black voters in Mississippi. Mississippi, of course, is the blackest state in the country. About 37% of our statewide population is black in Mississippi. But right now, there is only 1 justice of 9 on the state Supreme Court that's black. There's only, in the state's history, ever been 4 Supreme Court justices on the state Supreme Court that have been black, all of them since 1985, and none of them have ever served on the court at the same time. There's no black justice that's ever had a black colleague on the Mississippi State Supreme Court. Federal district court judge ruled last year, yes, the lines are drawn in a way that dilutes black voting power in Mississippi. So the state legislatures under a mandate right now, they have an opportunity to redraw these districts that would enlarge black voters' influence in the central district. That's the central part of the state. And, they're moving, but not in too much of a hurry. We've had some placeholder bills introduced, and lawmakers, have explicitly said, we're waiting. We're going to see if Calais comes down before we adjourn. The legislature goes out of session for the year in April, and if it gets down to the end, we'll introduce a map. We'll do what the lower court has asked us to do. But that doesn't mean this situation is over. Even if we get through the end of the legislative session and lawmakers do approve a map as instructed by the lower court, and they increase the influence of black voters in the central district, give them more power to potentially elect additional black Supreme Court justices. That case is still on appeal before the Fifth Circuit. Calais will be decided by June at the latest. And when that comes down, if the Voting Rights Act is heavily weakened, then this order is heavily, it's at risk on appeal. We might never see these new maps used in an election.
And see, look, we just had an election in Mississippi that reduced the Republican supermajority, and a couple of African Americans won. That was based upon a court ruling.
That's right. So there was a different voting rights lawsuit that attacked the composition of our state legislative districts. And you had courts say the same thing. The legislative districts are drawn in a way that weakens black voting power. So we had special elections that increased the number of black representatives in both the state Senate and the state House. And you're right, those races in the Senate were sufficient to break the Republican supermajority that existed in the Senate. So right on the heels of that, we've had a different district court say the state Supreme Court districts dilute black voting power, and that judge has really indicated she's likely to order special elections, but she wants to see the maps first that come out of the legislature and see if those are maps that she'll say pass constitutional muster, pass the fault that she found in the current maps, that there's a Section 2 violation. That's Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. So you're right, black voters have had a string of successes in the courts in the last couple of years bringing voting rights claims in Mississippi.
And listen, as you were talking about how they drew the lines. I mean, bottom line is we saw this for the longest in Alabama, and it was federal courts that ruled, listen, you're screwing over black voters. They had to create a second opportunity district that led to the election of Congressman Shamari Figures. They fought Louisiana, a third African-American, fought that. It was like, went to the Supreme Court, went back, they tried more tricks, go back, no. Then they create the second district, they elect Congressman Cleo Fields, and then they came up with this another way to challenge it, and that's where the Calais case comes from. And so what we have consistently seen white Republicans all across the South use the pen to screw black voters in so many different races, and without Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, without that, we're not going to see any sort of protection. And frankly, based upon those oral arguments, this Roberts-led court, guess what? They got the votes to wipe it out, and we are going to see a massive rollback of black political power when that actual decision comes down. I don't know of any, I've not talked to any black lawyers or constitutional experts who think that somehow we're going to be able to win this case based upon the questions that were being asked in oral arguments.
Yeah, that's definitely the mood among, a variety of legal observers in response to those oral arguments in the Calais case. Virtually all of the conservative justices in oral arguments seemed, skeptical at best about the current legal framework. There's still a kind of a question around the range of possibilities. At the most extreme, we could see a decision that just outright strikes down Section 2 as unconstitutional. There are other ways the court could probably attack the current framework while technically leaving Section 2 intact, but the end result very likely to look the same in either respect. One, that going forward it's much harder, if not just outright impossible, to win cases of the kind that we've seen black voters winning in Mississippi recently. And then at the more extreme end, depending on what happens in the decision in Calais, we could actually see either lawsuits from white voters, like we're seeing in Calais, trying to attack minority majority or opportunity districts that already exist, or we could see, an expansion of this mid-cycle redistricting that we're seeing right now, this redistricting war in places like, Texas, California, and now, potentially Florida and other states trying to get in. Other states have gotten in on it. If Section 2 falls, it's not clear how many states or how fast they could move depending on when Calais comes down. It might not be in time for this year's elections, this year's midterms, but we could definitely see southern states eliminate currently existing black majority districts, like the district in Mississippi that's represented by Representative Benny Thompson. So we could see, many of those opportunity districts across the South that are currently, held by black representatives redrawn and eliminated.
All right, then. Caleb, great reporting with the Marshall Project. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Real quick, going back to Greg and Reese, again, we keep trying to tell folk they got to pay attention to all of this stuff because all of these things are moving all at the same time, Reese. So you've got the Supreme Court action, you got what Trump been doing, you got what's happening in the states, you got Florida trying to redistrict, you got those weak-ass Democrats in Maryland who didn't want to move. I mean, again, this is what drives me crazy about soft, weak, impotent-ass Democrats who don't understand what's going on. The other side is playing for keeps. They playing for power. You can't sit here and say, well, no, we're going to do things a certain way in the right way. They don't give a damn. This is where you got to have a whole bunch of Louise Lucases in every state saying, we going to swing, let's swing.
Well, yeah, but people don't want black women in charge. I mean, that's the problem. Y'all want shit to be better, but you don't want the motherfuckers that's gonna fight tooth and nail for it because she cussed too much or she wear long eyelashes or whatever the hell stupid ass things y'all come up with, or she got she got an annoying laugh, whatever. So, this is what we get when we deal in the superficial, when we deal in stupidity, as opposed to dealing with people that really are about that life. But what I will say is, when the reason why I don't call this Jim Crow 2.0, I call it Trump Crow, is because when these black districts get taken away and when black voter power gets diluted, guess what? Your white ass can kiss your Medicaid goodbye. You can kiss your SNAP goodbye. You can kiss your Section 8 goodbye. You can kiss your Social Security goodbye. You can kiss your workers' rights and protections goodbye. You can kiss every civil rights advancement goodbye, because we got that. We got that through blood, sweat, and tears, and we keep it because we vote. We are the conscience of the American electorate. And so diluting our power is going to make your life more fucked up, whether you realize it or goddamn not.
Greg, if folk out there are saying, hey man, this ain't gonna really impact me, I want everybody to be on record. We are on record right here at 6:37 p.m. Eastern on February 26, 2026. We gonna say a big ass hashtag we tried to tell you.
We are, and it's going to be necessary to do. Holly Green often says sometimes movements skip a generation. In this case, maybe 2 generations. And as we heard the good brother Damon Hewitt say on Tuesday night in the State of Our Union, Damon said, things are going to get worse before they get better. In the case of Mississippi, let's say that the Calais case, in fact, does kick the teeth out of Section 2 of the Civil Rights Act. That means the lawyers are going to go back and try to preserve salvage some of Judge Aycock's opinion on new legal grounds. They're going to push to try to maybe get those adopted maps. Maybe they will fail. But here's the end game, seems to me. When folks like Latasha Brown or Cliff or April Albright say that we must emphasize the South, I agree with that. And I'll add this, we must emphasize the cities. There should be no supermajority white nationalist legislatures in the South, even with the extreme gerrymandering, if we will do what you and Reverend Barber and our good brother Gary Chambers out of Louisiana say, which is vote our numbers. Maybe they will have a white nationalist majority in those states, and I'm not at all sure of that because I don't even trust that Mississippi is as low as 37% black. I'd say at least 40% or more. But either way, we can stop them from running through at the state level these supermajority bills and legislation. Now, Atlanta, Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, New Orleans, you name it, go through the South. Charlotte, you go through the South. These cities are not white nationalist cities. Even as they can hamstring them at the state level when it comes to funding, and even if they continue to capture the federal legislature in terms of funding, the cities then become our place where we push back and where we consolidate power. It does, however, finally have to be based on this. When the white nationalists have shown you who they are, you must treat them as what they are, enemies of our common humanity. There will be no consensus. There will be no attempt to wrangle some form of crossing the aisle. No, now it is an all-out war, and we control the cities. At that point, let these rural whites who decide that they're going to vote against their interests because they want to embrace their white supremacy, let them eat it. And let's engage in colorblind constitutionalism, as Derek Bell would call it, in the cities. We're just giving out contracts based on the majority of the people in the city. We're just doing that. And guess what? If you control the mayor, if you control the city council, even if they try to starve you at the state level, you still have considerable power. And then this next generation, not these young people now, perhaps, will continue to run up and down and chase balls for the SEC or anything. But the next generation, when it gets bad enough, the pushback will happen. And guess what? At that point, I don't know what happens to the United States of America, but I suspect we will be just fine.
Folks, hold tight 1 second. Going to a quick break. We come back. We'll talk with Melody Span Cooper, owner, WVON Radio, about life and legacy of her longtime friend, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network, live in Los Angeles, where I'm attending the NAACP Image Awards. We'll be right back.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
My name is Bill Duke, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, we're over the top of the show with a live feed of the Lying in Repose of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. at Rainbow Push. That is still going on. You see right there. Families greeting folks there. My guest today is Melody Span Cooper, owner of WVON Radio, the only black-owned radio station in Chicago. Has known Reverend Jackson, the family, for a very, very long time. Of course, her father, Purvis Span, also prior to that, owning the station as well. Melody, I swear, so your daddy owned it, you owned it, but a lot of times Reverend Jackson acted like he owned WVON.
Yeah, he was a major shareholder in it, right? He did, and Roland, you can recall during the time that you were there were two people who I would always tell you guys, I don't care when they call, let them in. One didn't take a lot of advantage of it. The other one took a lot of advantage of it. And that was, of course, Minister Farrakhan and Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson. He will be greatly missed. And, you know, for the last 2 or 3 years, you know, us not getting those calls every day, him wanting to come on to discuss whatever it is he wanted to talk about, you know, it just shows how much for granted we took those times at a time like this.
Yep. Oh, and the thing is that, and this is what I try to explain to people, because he would call when I was at WVON, when I ran Chicago Defender.
Yep.
Reverend would call about a story that I wasn't even working on, that he would want turned into a story. But the thing that people need to understand, and I don't know of anybody else in my career who understood the value of black-owned media. He understood, and black newspapers, black magazines, black radio, and it's a lot of politicians and a lot of activists. They love the mainstream media lights and attention. Reverend did that, but he understood you always talk to your people in black-owned media.
He really did and respected it. That's why we're there. We've been there since 7 a.m. this morning. We will be there all day today, all day tomorrow. We're going all the way with Reverend because he wouldn't have it any other way, Roland. You're absolutely right. And what I loved about him is, Reverend changed a lot of trajectory for these businessmen, a lot of black businessmen in corporate America. He never stopped talking about black media when he went there, black-owned media, and the importance of supporting it. So no matter how global he got, how big he got, he always remembered local. The world turned green and global. He always was black and local. And that's a benefit because when you reach the amount of people that Reverend reached and touched, it was great that he took us with him and made people respect us. He didn't put the major networks ahead of us. He wanted us in the room, and he when he was in the room with people who could make a difference for us, he talked us up, and we will miss him. I don't know of anybody even coming behind him that carries that mantra for us. You do it, of course, right? I do it, but someone who's not directly engaged with us. I don't know if there's a replacement for that.
Well, I remember, there isn't. I'm just being straight up. I remember having this very conversation on WVON. I remember saying to the audience, and you're talking about, that was 2006, 2007,
yeah,
2008. I was like, y'all, I'm like, black people, I'm telling y'all right now, and y'all don't want to hear it, but there is nobody who is on the level of Reverend Jackson. And I would often say, I'm telling y'all right now, y'all can act like I'm wrong, but I said, black America has no idea how we will rue the day when Reverend Jesse Jackson is not on the scene. And because of Parkinson's, and even though he was still with us, because he did not have the voice and the stamina, we actually see it. We felt it. And people thought, I'm like, people, oh man, you just saying that. I'm like, no. I'm like, y'all don't understand. And what I said before, when we had the night he passed, I said, I think part of the problem, Melody, you alluded to it, that because he was ever present, omnipotent, always on the scene, we absolutely took for granted his presence. And I said, we gonna feel it when times get tough, because it's gonna be like, yo, who has not only the intellect but the health and the stature to be able to command the attention of the folk on the other side of the table.
You are absolutely right, Roland, and I know you've been showing it all day, but if you could see the lines in Chicago to come and pay tribute to him, it's so touching, because I remember Reverend going to different boycotts in Chicago. It didn't take much to get Reverend to support or stand up for you, right? If no matter how big the cause, Reverend was going to be there, and to see people turn out all day the way that they've turned out, it's just been amazing. And I was thinking as I was watching it early, I was like, we could have only turned out in life for him that way, and that's what happens. I remember I interviewed Reverend in 2013, right around the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. And we talked about at the end of Dr. King's life how, there weren't a lot of followers for him. And Reverend talked about how that happens in life. And then when they pass, they become martyrs. They almost become martyrs, right? And how we take the presence of such powerful men so for granted when they walk amongst us. And so we're experiencing that now. But to see his eloquent children, these 6 vessels are just so amazing how they have stood up and represented him over the last week. And I'm sure until the next week. That's his true legacy. And so with those 6 dynamic young people, I think we will be okay.
Yeah, and before I go to my panel, before I go to Greg and Reese, it's real simple, y'all. It's called doing the work. This is not about the difference between, and then again, I just think people, I remember a lot of the comment, man, every time you see him, he on television, he just on the radio. No. It's called the work. He was doing the work. Too many people really do not understand the intellect of Reverend Jackson. When the ability to recall facts and figures, the ability to be able to connect the dots and all of that. And when you talk about, putting folk out to pasture, I mean, and I'll say it, listen, a lot of people were pissed off when Obama got elected and comments Reverend made. And I remember having him on the air. And when even I went off on him. And I was like, look, now damn it, I'm agree with you and I'm going to disagree with you. But what happened was...
You and Reverend were so funny,
people
Roland. You and Reverend were something else together.
Look,
some days you all were on the same page and the days that you weren't. Oh, goodness, right? But that speaks to the integrity that you have to stand up to a man that powerful. Most people wouldn't, and you would challenge Reverend, but it was in love. It was always in love.
Oh, absolutely. And see, when Obama gets elected, and I remember this vividly, a lot of people, I'm talking about a lot of black people, would not bring Reverend on their shows. They would not listen to what he had to say. And when he went after Silicon Valley, and I remember him calling me and had my TV One show, and I was on Tom Joyner, and he was calling, and I said, and I understood what Reverend was doing. And folk were like, man, I'm with Reverend, sit down. I'm like, do y'all understand what are you talking about? And he was the one, we're talking about 10, 11, 12, who really began to jam up Silicon Valley to force them to honor their commitments. And we were talking about this. So this was pre-George Floyd's murder in 2020. He was forcing Apple, Facebook, Google, to really hire and commit to doing things with African Americans. And again, a lot of black folks wouldn't put them on. And I said, Reverend, I'm going to put you on every week because the issue matters. And that was my point. We have to learn that we may have disagreements about certain things. It can't be personal. When the interests of black people are at place, the mission comes before folk personal feelings.
Absolutely. And the thing that people have to really respect about Reverend was he wasn't afraid. Roland, he never was afraid of the fight. I think about Nike. If you recall when he challenged Nike, I can just, when I was a kid here in Chicago, there was a food chain called A&P, and there were many stores throughout our community, and they were selling rancid meat. Reverend shut them down. He just, if the cause was not on the side of what he believed was right for our people, he was willing to take it up, big or small. And I don't know how you fill that void in 2026. I just don't know how you do it. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's time for all of us to stand up. Those of us with voices, those of us who have the acumen and the power, and go in these boardrooms and go wherever the cause is, and do it in respect and honor of him, because he did leave the blueprint.
Questions from the panel. Reese, you first.
Oh, thank you for sharing your insights and your relationship. One thing that we've seen in Reverend Jackson with his People's Platform and his presidential campaign was revolutionary and incredibly progressive. But what we've seen in progressive movements more recently is try to pivot away from the idea that race specifically is something that should be tackled in our politics and not just class. So can you talk a little bit about Reverend Jackson's intersectionality around race and class?
That's a great question. Reverend, I don't know if you've ever heard him referred to as the country preacher. Reverend came from the South, never left that, never lost that sense of connectivity to poor people, to the underserved. And although, his journey took him in globally, across the board, internationally, into corporate America, Reverend's love, I recall just in the last 10 years, he would do his conventions in Chicago. Reverend put a tent outside. And we were all like, why is Reverend got this tent outside? He was harping back to a time when Dr. King, when they did the Poor People's Campaign. Now, probably nobody on this panel lived back when they did the Poor People's Campaign, but that he stayed connected to that. He stayed connected to people who you would think as he had moved forward, he might have moved away from. Never that. And I think that's what made him so special. The simple things, the way he walked around Chicago in stores and in restaurants and with children. I remember when we moved to the South Loop, and there's a nursery school in the building. And Reverend came out, and many of the parents was like, oh my God, that's Reverend Jackson. And he was like, come let the kids take a picture with me. This has been in the last 8 years. So it is so much the fiber of who he was authentically. He never left it. And I think that is, and very few people can move across spectrums like that. Reverend was one that could. Rod Blagojevich, who was the former governor of Illinois, was on earlier this year and talked about when they went to Serbia, and you remember that, Roland? And he brought back some hostages, and he talked about Reverend's ability to negotiate at a level that he had never experienced or never seen. Imagine that Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson and the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson who was on 50th and Drexel for the last 60 years, right? Working with people in the community. It's just been magical to watch him be able to navigate those worlds like that and do it so authentically. So yeah, that's how I would kind of explain that.
Greg?
Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. And thank you, Sister Melody, for all your years and all your family's years of service to our community. Black-owned media is defined in many ways by the voice of the Negro. And that's really what I want to ask you about. Not just Jesse Jackson's influence, but your family's influence in WVON. I'm thinking about interviews that I've watched with history makers. I know you've done one with my friend Larry Crow, but Cecil Hale talking about how it was WVON that kind of gives him that nickname, puts the floor under him with the Black Expos and covering him in Cicero, mentioning his name in all the news stories. And your father, of course, it'd have been this great Purvis fan talking about being on, on the air 87 straight hours raising money for Martin Luther King. And then when Jesse comes with Operation Breadbasket, doing the same thing. Could you talk a little bit about how WVON plays a role in the development of the Jesse Jackson that the rest of the world now knows? And thank you.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for asking that. Chicago is very fortunate to have a station like WVON, whose call letters for the voice of the Negro. And as we've evolved as a people, of course, we now call it the voice of a nation. But one of the reasons why Chicago has a Jesse Jackson and at the level of prominence that he's been You think about we're on our fourth African American mayor in Chicago, first black female U.S. senator, a president of the United States. It's because of really black-owned black press. Think about the Chicago Defender. You think about what we do at VON. You think about the Black Star network that Roland has built. We're agitators. We're activists and we're agitating. So we may not, we've got wonderful audiences and they may not be the size of CNN's or something like that, but our ability to make a difference among our people and to get them moving. We start the movement. We're a movement radio station, and I think that is what melded us to Reverend Jackson when he got to the assignment to come to Chicago from Dr. King. And it's always been that way. You know, Dr. King, VON was Dr. King's pulpit. He used Chicago because there were so many black folks that had moved there, 1 million strong back in 1966, 67. Wow. And he moved to Chicago because he knew it was a great platform to show the world the disconnect between the economics of black folks and the rest of America. And so ever since then, I mean, I think our footprint has been in so many different things. I was at a church last night talking about it, and for Black History Month, the importance of this, and markets that have stations that are hyper-local, connected to community, community-centric, are more progressive markets if you look at it, or they should be across the board. And in markets that are not progressive is because they don't have somebody there that's speaking truth to power and waking up the community and saying, hey, we are powerful, let's go. And that's what VON has been to Black Chicago, and why Black Chicago has been the first in so many different things. Roland will tell you Barack Obama, when he first began and started wanting to run for state senator, he did talk shows at VON. He was a regular caller to WVON. The black community got to know him in a very wide way because of that radio station. And he's never forgotten that.
Thank you.
And this is why to this day, I have said directly to black United States senators. I've said this to black preachers and to other folks who are activists. You can chase the New York Times. You can chase CNN. You can love MSNBC. You can go to all those places. But if you ain't got a base of black people, and if you ain't going to black radio, and you're not talking to black digital operations and talking to black newspapers, you're going to find out what's going to happen when you try to go higher. And I listen. I tell these folks, I'm like, I don't care. I remember that was during the Black Lives Matter movement, there was this one group, and they came out with this big old plan, and they gave the embargo to the New York Times. And I cussed their ass out. I said, how y'all got a plan that's centered around black people, and you take that shit to the New York Times? I said, but then you won't bring your ass on Tom Joyner Morning Show and TV One and black radio. And you know what happened? They plan didn't go anywhere. I'm telling you right now, I told Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, I said, y'all ran for president, y'all made no effort to build a black base by doing black radio and black media. So when they ran, folks didn't know who you were.
Yeah. I got one better for you, Roland.
I keep telling
I got one better
that.
for you. You want to hear the new one? Imagine Black History Month.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't get $1. And I'm watching Black History programs on these big O&O stations brought to you by Toyota. They'll pay white folks for our culture, but won't invest with us on our culture. That's how crazy this has gotten.
And the problem that we have, and the problem that we have today is that, and if we really want to be honest, with Reverend Jackson, because of what happened with Parkinson's and now being deceased, we do not have a major civil rights voice who is making Reverend Sharpton is doing some, but I'm talking about, again, I'm speaking on Reverend Jackson's level, who was understood this and would literally say, I'm going to organize these meetings with these very companies and walk in saying, how you funding these projects over here but not over here? And that's what I told I kept saying to black people. You got to have freedom fighters on the national level who are speaking up for black economics, who have the personal capacity and the power to be able to affect change. And black America had better understand we're going to miss this. And if there was never a time with the anti-DEI efforts, and I'm telling y'all black folks, ain't no black-owned media outlet not being impacted. I know black newspapers that have lost 80% of their funding because in the last year. And so with Trump there for the next 3 years in the attacks, if there was ever a moment, and I'm here at the NAACP Image Awards, if there was ever a moment for black civil rights groups, that's talking to you, Derek Johnson, NAACP, Mark Murriel, National Urban League, Reverend Al Sharpton, I'm talking about, and then other groups, if there was ever a moment, Samantha Tweedy, Black Economic Alliance, Global Black Economic Forum, Alfonso Marsh, if there was ever a moment, this is the moment to step up and say, we are going to answer that call to further the action going from Reverend Leon Sullivan to MLK, morphs into Operation Breadbasket, Reverend Jackson morphs into Push, and then now we're in 2026. Because if you ain't got black folks nationally fighting for black economic inclusion, then you can guarantee we will be left out of this economic pie. Melody, always a pleasure. I appreciate it. My team will be in Chicago next week. We shall cross paths.
I will see you there. I'm in Atlanta right now. My aunt passed it, and I've been in traffic all day. How do people live here? Anywho, I will see you next week in the Chi. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. All right. Condolences to the family. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so very much. All right, folks. Listen, Greg is going to take over the show for me from here. I got to run and go do some stuff. But that point right there, I'm telling y'all, listen, I had this conversation when I was getting a bite to eat earlier. Y'all, if there was a moment where black people are going to have to circle the wagons, it is now. Y'all heard me say a year ago that there's a massive effort to defund black America. I cannot yell this louder from the rafters that what we are seeing is an attack on every facet of black America. These people, I came across this clip, I think I sent it to the control room, and I'm going to deal with this here. There was this Negro preacher, this sorry, lame-ass Negro preacher who literally said from the pulpit that the demise of the black family began with the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And I replied on Twitter, I said, you dumbass, that was a public accommodations bill. That was a bill that dealt with us being able to stay in hotels and travel, interstate travel on buses and all sorts of different things. But why do I find that ignorant Negro preacher to be so wrong? Because that's the same language that the white supremacists are using, because they have been saying that black America, or that America, the downfall of America began with the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And so I need black folks watching to understand, and I know Greg and Reese are going to talk about this Pennsylvania, what they're trying to do there with this major and some other stuff, but I need people understanding, people watching and listening to understand. What we are witnessing is white conservative anger at black progress, at black success. And so their sights are absolutely on the 64 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Rights Act, the 68 Fair Housing Act. Donald Trump is using a Negro in Scott Turner to undermine the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They have no desire to investigate police officers who shoot, kill, beat, and maim black people. They have no desire for HUD to investigate racism and discrimination. They have no desire for the Department of Commerce to investigate discrimination when it comes to Wall Street and other companies. You're not going to see a strong SEC. You're not going to, they already are destroying the EPA and environmental justice. Folks, there's a bullseye on the target of every black person in this country. And we had better wake up to what's going on, because it is real. The attacks are real. And repercussions are going to be real. And that's why voting matters, but voting is just one part of the process. This is a moment where we've got to be taken to the streets, organized and mobilized, putting pressure on systems. This is not a time for us to say that we are tired. This is not a time for us to be saying, oh, I want to sit this one out. Because our nieces and nephews and our children and grandchildren cannot afford for us to be on the sidelines. Folks, support Roland Martin Unfiltered with your resources. We require your help to do what we do. We don't have millionaires and billionaires. I'm out here in LA, but trust me, there are only 3 entertainers who have supported this show in 7 years, just 3. So we can't count on our future by relying on entertainers and athletes. It's regular, ordinary people, and I thank y'all. 37,179 donors and counting have supported this show. If you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. That's also for credit cards. You see it right here. Use that. Also, checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Going to a break. We come back. Greg Carr, Reese Colbert, they will take it away for the rest of the show. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Back in a moment.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just 2 millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
On next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook, that's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
What's up? It's Talib Kweli. I'm CEO. This is the Black Star Network.
Donald the Con Trump is escalating his so-called war on fraud, freezing more than $250 million in Medicaid funding to Minnesota. Junior Varsity Vance, J.D. Vance, says the payments will remain paused until the state submits an anti-fraud plan that the administration considers acceptable. Minnesota is the first state targeted, and officials say others could follow. Of course they do. The move comes a day after Trump vowed in his so-called State of the Union to crack down on fraud in federal programs. Probably the first thing he needs to do is give all the money that he and his Trump crime family are taking out of our pockets back to the government. The administration is freezing new Medicaid payments to companies supplying durable medical equipment while it investigates suspected fraud. Governor Tim Walz is calling the Medicaid freeze political retaliation and warning it could impact vulnerable residents. To explain how this freezing of funds will impact those who need help is Adamika Meadows, author, the CEO of Health Tech for Medicaid. Welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered, Sister Arthur, and please walk us through how this is going to impact us in real time.
Yes, well, I'm just in Minnesota today, just landed just an hour or so ago. And what's happening in Minnesota is significant because Medicaid is a state and federal partnership. So the federal government kind of reimburses states for services that are already delivered. So this is not getting money ahead of time. This is you've already delivered those services and you're waiting for your payment. It's a little bit like you going to work, working all of your hours, and then waiting for your paycheck. In this case, CMS, or the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, is temporarily withholding not just $259 million in reimbursements, while they're alleging concerns about fraud and fraud oversight. This is really unusual, both in scale and in posture. And it raises real questions that we're concerned about enforcement, about state and federal balance, and about how quickly providers get paid directly. I think that, when federal payments are paused, and we saw this twice last year, we'd never seen this before where, people did not get paid for Medicaid. The immediate pressure falls really on the state budget and on the healthcare providers, on the healthcare systems. That's hospitals, that's clinics, that's behavioral health providers, that's independent doctors, that's transportation services, who they already operate on very tight margins. I was a hospital leader for about 16 years in this country, and we deeply rely on Medicaid. Children's hospitals, like so much of their budget is reliant on Medicaid. So the larger issue is not just fraud enforcement, but because I think all of us agree that Medicaid integrity matters. We all want to have a safe and we want all of our federal dollars to be spent well. I don't think anybody's denying that. The question now is really how is enforcement handled and how CMS is going to be working with states through these audits, especially since we've really not had a lot of these audits and correction plans in this way, how withholding federal dollars of this scale and size represents a bigger federal posture. It's pretty authoritative. It's very concerning.
Could we talk a little bit about how they have failed so far to actually carry out these cuts? We know that it has been blue states, Minnesota, New York, California, Illinois, Colorado. The federal judges blocking most of these efforts. We've seen them attempt to withhold funding for food stamps. A federal judge blocked that. HHS tried to freeze $10 billion in funding for child care subsidies. A federal judge blocked that. I'm sure that you all will be in court around this. Could you walk us through what you expect, whether or not this might even succeed, given what we're seeing so far coming out of the federal courts?
Well, it's a little bit complicated, right? Because all of those different cases had to do with different pots of money and different funding scenarios. This is a completely different pathway, and it's a pathway we're not really used to getting kind of cut off. One, in that volume of money, and two, in this sort of way. So this is kind of unprecedented in a way. I do expect there will be legislation around that. There'll be some enforcement around this. I'm certain there'll be litigation. I think what people need to understand is that Medicaid is the largest insurer of children, right? It is the biggest payer of long-term care. It is a major source of disability services, right? And you talked about durable medical equipment, right? these are things that people need, right? And so when funding becomes uncertain, providers, hospital systems, clinics, federally qualified health centers, they face cash flow issues, and that can ripple outward. Now, I don't want people to think their benefits are ending, right? Or that this impacts them personally at home. It really impacts the systems more than it impacts them. But if you're a small mom and pop, provider, it'll hurt much more. You don't have cash reserves. You don't have, 100 and 150 of days cash on hand to dip into. People will probably have to take personal loans out. This will impact people's lives significantly. So as of now, I'm sure benefits will continue. I'm certain the state has, some reserves. I'm sure other states will open up coffers. This is a blue state, and Minnesota has just been under fire. Let's just be real. We have seen so many of us are really feeling the pain of the just assault on the state. But I think the prolonged deferrals or even, litigation, that could create additional strain. I think the other thing to think about is the larger national implications of what this could mean for other states.
That's very important. Yeah, like you said, I mean, just the disruption alone, and thank you when you opened up, you kind of put front and center the fact that nobody wants waste, fraud, abuse. But in this case, am I wrong to say what's being reported that there's no evidence of any of this that has been put forth by them? Is that true?
From what we've been told, that is the case. Those of us who work in this field, we spend a lot of time with the federal government. I spent time on Monday with CMS representatives. I think we're trying to be as friendly as possible. This program represents a fifth of Americans. We really need to do our best to be at the table and to ensure the integrity of the program. With all of the stuff on the table with HR 1 happening, we are really trying to make sure as many people as possible, and for me, like as many brown people, as many people of color as possible, get access to the services that are necessary to keep their lives. It's a quality and duration of life issue for us. I know that this administration is really touting, fraud, waste, and abuse in every angle it can. I just worry that it's doing it on the backs of people's lives and livelihood.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, we're going to bring our sister Reese Colbert in to be in this conversation. Reese, any questions, comments for Adamika Meadows Arthur?
Thank you for being here. One of the points I try to emphasize is that these safety net programs are not charity, and how they essentially supplement people who are not are receiving these services, this Medicaid or Medicare or whichever, by providing a patient and revenue base in these areas. Can you talk a little bit about how Medicaid stabilizes the consumer base or stabilizes the revenue base so that providers actually want to service certain areas?
Well, sure. I mean, I was, like I mentioned earlier, I was a hospital leader, and, many hospitals do not survive actually without federal dollars, certainly Medicaid, right? Most hospitals rely on about 30% of most hospital budgets or at least Medicaid, let alone Medicare, which is another federal program. Our hospitals, and that's not even speaking of our rural hospitals, would deeply depend on our federal resources. So not only do people in the U.S. rely on them, as you know, most people, well, almost everyone over the age of 65, as if they've paid into the system and they're a citizen, are eligible for Medicare, and they should sign up for Medicare. I'll tell everybody that. So almost every hospital in the nation takes Medicare dollars, and should. And you look at children's hospitals, as I mentioned earlier, they significantly rely on Medicaid. So without federal dollars, we don't have, our commercial base is not set up to fully, these are insured patients. Let me just step back. This is not charity care. This is not money being thrown away somewhere. These are insured patients. They have insurance.
Can we continuing this, it's interesting. I was looking at Health Tech for Medicaid, the formation, of course, that you founded in 2018. It looks like a very wide coalition and broad coalition of folks, a lot of healthcare providers, a lot of folks looking at the fellows program that you have and kind of bringing another generation in to help them understand how we can intervene in this. How important is the political process in this, and where do you see the pressure points that can be pushed on to kind of maybe force this current administration to back up off of this? And how important is like solidarity and coalition, because you seem to have built quite a broad one with Health Tech for Medicaid?
Yeah, I mean, part of the seeds for why Health Tech for Medicaid came to be is that we did not have an ecosystem upgirding Medicaid, right? We also did not have a lot of power in Medicaid. It was the largest insured population in the nation, but we were not in capital markets. We were not seen as a viable, investable ecosystem. And so that's actually where it came from. It came out of major frustration as a hospital leader, and watching Silicon Valley and all of these products and services come in and running a delivery system and seeing a rationalization of who got innovation and who didn't. And so that's really where it came from. It now has grown into a very large national name. We've got payers, providers, policymakers, entrepreneurs, investors, advocates, but more importantly, people on Medicaid, their caregivers, family members, who are a part of our ecosystem. We've got well over 80,000 people on our mailing list. We've got a really great, newsletter that comes out. We try to be very informative. We're on all of the social channels. But like you said, we are trying to train up the next level of Medicaid leaders in this country. Medicaid still is not taught in most health policy programs in some ways, in most medical schools. Most people are not really, it's still shunned in some ways, even though it's the largest insured population in the US. There is a lot of stigma, partially because when these programs were started in 1965, we called one care. That sounds lovely. I care for someone. And one was called aid. And that didn't sound so great, right? And so there is stigma behind, poor people on Medicaid and older individuals on Medicare. And while those stigma, there's not a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of people that you would not anticipate that are on Medicaid. 1 in 5 Americans, it's your neighbors, it's your friends, it's who you go to the grocery store with. It's a lot of people, even with means, they just have a disability or they have a condition that would allow them to have those sorts of benefits.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, ultimately, this very human problem, one that we will all face in our lives as we go through our life journeys. Certainly, it's unavoidable, and thank you for doing the work that you're doing. It's ht4m.org for people to get involved, sign up in the database, donate, and continue this work. We've seen what happens when people fight back, certainly in Minnesota, so I don't expect that this will be any different. Adamika Meadows, author, CEO of
Here on the ground today doing the same work. So I just landed and rolling up my sleeves in this very cold environment, getting to work.
No, it's no doubt about it. Yeah, and thank you for joining us tonight, because like you say, clearly you just landed because you found a corner and said, let me get involved in this work. And please come back. Keep us updated. Minnesota has become in many ways the tip of the spear, and we wouldn't expect anything less. And certainly we're going to support you here at Black Star Network. Thank you, Sister Adamika Meadows, author, and we'll talk with you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're watching
Dr. Carr, can I interject something?
Oh, yeah, please. Oh, yeah, please, Reese. Yeah, of course. Come on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, there's been so much talk about Minnesota fraud, Somali fraud, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that what they're talking about, the main thing they're talking about, the hundreds of millions of dollars, was a program. And that fraud, alleged fraud, I should say, started when Donald Trump was president. That's number one, in 2020. And it was investigated and prosecuted under the Biden-Harris administration. Yes. It was Christopher Wray, who was the FBI director at the time, who investigated it. And it was Biden's DOJ that prosecuted these people. And so Donald Trump touts finding this fraud as though his administration is the one that found this fraud. His administration didn't do jack shit. It started under his administration. Mm-hmm. So it was actually the Democrats. It was actually Joe Biden and his department, or his Department of Justice, that discovered this and prosecuted it. And I think that there is definitely room to to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. But make no mistake about it, that fucking idiot Kash Patel, who is too busy taking private jets all around the world, and so busy that even Charlie Kirk's killer couldn't have been investigated quickly enough because Kash Patel was rolling off somewhere in a private jet.
That's right.
He ain't find nothing like this. They are not even competent enough to discover the kind of fraud that they are touting that the other guys discovered. So any kind of fraud under this administration is probably going to be balls to the walls with them under it. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, they talk about withholding $250 million in Medicaid payments to Minnesota, which is bullshit. But Donald Trump has pardoned criminals who are responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud, and his pardons have cost Americans over $1 billion in restitution that no longer has to be paid as a result of his pardons. And so this administration is completely full of shit when it talks about going after fraud. He has rewarded fraudster and fraudster. All they have to do is cut a check to a Donald Trump campaign or buy some crypto, and Donald Trump will sign on the dotted line to let them get away with all kinds of fraud and all kinds of illegal behavior.
That's absolutely right. Thank you, Reese, for pointing that out. And like you said, under the Biden administration in September 2022, the FBI has made the first arrests, I guess, in September, and they said the Justice Department under the Biden administration charged 48 people with stealing $240 million for exploiting child nutrition program during the pandemic. But of course, the money was flowing fast and free. Ask Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene about money that they got during the pandemic. So, but yeah, thank you for making sure that we understand that this is not a news story and that it shouldn't be trained on the Somalis of Minneapolis and of Minnesota, over 100,000, largest diaspora of Somalis in the world. And you're absolutely right. The Trump crime family, while we've been on the air, in fact, the news dropped that Netflix is pulling back its offer after David Ellison and the Trump-supporting white nationalists of Paramount have sweetened their deal along with a lot of money from outside the country, as Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are over there trying to figure out how to shake down Iran for more money. Apparently, the Saudis and the sovereign funds that are able to pour into Paramount have now on the verge of buying CNN and buying Warner, which means I'm canceling all subscriptions. But at any rate, I don't watch CNN anyway. But yeah, like I say, you want to talk about money and fraud? Yeah, you probably should look somewhere else. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for making sure that we understood and understand that. You're watching the Black Star Network, Roland Martin Unfiltered, and we will be right back.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
To the Black Star Network. Make sure that you all support the Black Star Network. You heard Roland, who's out at the NAACP Image Awards. The Black Star Network should sweep the awards every week, but then, or every month or every year. But, sometimes there's no accounting for how those things are done. But we know that the Black Star Network is the leading source of news for our people and for a lot of other people as well. So please support the Black Star Network. Let's go to Philadelphia. Let's go to Pennsylvania for a moment. Arcadia University in Pennsylvania is now offering a minor in racism and anti-racism studies aimed at training students in advocacy and action against racism. The university emphasizes its long-standing commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as its efforts to combat systems of anti-Black racism, as highlighted on the program's webpage. It asserts that this program is particularly important given the current political climate. Conservative critics and think tanks have criticized curricula centered on diversity, equity, inclusion as one-sided and dismissive of ideological diversity. Reese, this attack on universities has been relentless. We did get some good news out of New Hampshire a few days ago. The American Civil Liberties Union and the ACLU of New Hampshire was able to go to court, and we see that this Dear Colleague letter, this foolishness that came out last year, has been completely neutralized, so we don't have to worry about that. But still, there's a chilling effect. K-12, universities, what's your sense of this continued assault on curricula? And in this case, Arcadia University pushing back and saying, no, we're going with our full chest forward. Should more schools try to follow that example?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I love that they're doubling down because this is an important topic. And let me tell you something. When you're looking at the conversation around this Texas Senate race, it's needed, okay? Even from so-called allies. You've been saying soft white nationalists for years, Dr. Carr, but it's very clear that people are not as anti-racist as they like to claim that they are. And so, yeah, I appreciate that. And I think it just shows how absurd it was with the court wins in particular, that so many universities were just chomping at the bit to comply in advance with the Donald Trump administration. It also showed that people did that because that's what they wanted to do anyway. So the first chance that they got that permission slip to say, let's pull the rug from under these DEI programs, let's pull the rug from all of the advancements that we've made, which, mind you, there were still massive disparities when it came to admissions for Black students or even, programs and things of that nature. But the first chance that they got to take things away, they were like, sign me up. And so I think that what has been very revealing through what this administration has tried to do is who's on our side, who's on the side of humanity, who's on the side of decency, and who is on the side of, I'm going to do the bare minimum and I'm going to provide the illusion that I really care and that I'm in this to actually move the country forward or move the needle forward until it's no longer convenient for me.
Absolutely. It's breaking news to me. I didn't know. I don't know, Reese. Did you see this? Cardi B was in Texas, and she urged her followers on Instagram to vote next week for Jasmine Crockett over James Tallarico. Did that happen today?
I saw it. I love me.
Well, break that down for us, because I'm going to go to the next story, but I just saw that. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. So, yeah, how important is that? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we certainly saw Nicki Minaj over there stumbling over her life for whatever reasons with Trump. But, I mean, how do you interpret this? I know young people in particular may be following something like that.
I'm skeptical that it moves the needle very much. I mean, we saw when Beto run, he had Beyonce in her shirt. She had a little, Beto shirt on. We've seen celebrity endorsements on both sides of the aisle plenty of times. I don't think that it really makes much of a difference. But what it can do is it can generate some enthusiasm. It can make it more of an event. And sometimes that helps get people out is people feeling like they're a part of something. And so I think that at a minimum, it can't hurt. You know what I'm saying? Gary Chambers, our good brother Gary Chambers, has been breaking down the numbers in Harris County, for example, and saying like, look, this turnout is not that great so far. It's certainly not running ahead or not running ahead by much of prior election cycles. And the theory of Jasmine Crockett's race or Congresswoman Crockett's race is that she can activate disillusioned and disaffected voters. Now, in her defense, part of the reason why maybe they haven't been as activated is because the mainstream media and the white nationalists, the soft white nationalists, let me put it that way, have really tried to drive home this point about electability and about only Tallarico can win, even though white men have been losing for 30 years statewide on the Democratic side. And so that could be partially suppressing some of the turnout because people might feel like she can't win, and so why bother to vote? But if you are out there sitting your black ass on the couch thinking that I'm not going to vote because she ain't going to win anyway, you need to get your ass up, and early voting ends on Friday, and then election day is on Tuesday, and you need to vote like your life depends on it, because these people are counting your black ass out, okay? Let me tell you something. If she does not win that primary, then you will prove them fucking right. You will prove them absolutely right that they ain't got, there's no point in trying to activate, because that is what this woman has been out there as she's been flying back and forth to the Capitol to do her job, because she's a sitting congresswoman. She ain't a part-time legislator, okay? And put it like that. She has a whole ass job that's full-time around the year. If she is doing that and then coming back and she's going to nightclubs, she's going to restaurants, she's going to barns and wherever else, barnstorming the whole state, then you can get up and vote. And so I appreciate everybody that's activated. She had Kelly Rowland the other day. She had Cardi B today. There's some other, she had Method Man. Ooh, I saw Method Man. I said, okay, okay, man.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
I know that's right. So I'm just saying, look, I would vote anyway, but I'm just saying, some people are probably looking at it like, okay, I know that's right. Let's go with Jasmine. So even if, I'm going to say this, let's say that the turnout is not as massive, and let's say she barely ekes out a win here. I think, though, that being able to silence the doubters who do not think that black voters are worth investing in, and people who may have been tempted to be apathetic because, well, she ain't gonna win anyway. They all in for the white man. He was on Colbert and da-da-da-da-da-da. I think that if she gets past that finish line, kind of the same thing Obama had to deal with. When he won Iowa, then everybody was like opening up the floodgates. If they see that she can win in the primary, which you should help her, that's Reese Colbert's opinion.
No.
Then maybe that can open up some floodgates for the general as well.
Indeed. I didn't realize she had Method Man down there. And in passing, we'll send out condolences, of course, the transition of Oliver Grant, Power Grant, who's one of the founders of the WU, out of Staten Island at age 52. But I didn't realize Method Man was out there. So let's move for a moment to Chappaqua, New York, where, of course, Hillary Clinton was deposed today. And Bill Clinton will be deposed tomorrow by James Comer, and his committee. The former Secretary of State, in fact, is demanding a public deposition, that is former Secretary Hillary Clinton, after it was paused, her deposition was paused when a Republican representative, Lauren Boebert, still around, huh, Bobo, who shared a photo of Clinton testifying with a conservative white nationalist influencer, Benny Johnson, who then posted it on social media. This action, of course, violated the committee's rules regarding depositions. During her testimony, Clinton said she was unaware of the crimes committed by Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Her husband, former Bill Clinton, as I said, is set to testify before the oversight panel on Friday. This will be the first time a former president has been compelled to testify before the Congress. The Clintons had initially resisted the panel's subpoena, dismissing it as politically motivated. They ultimately agreed to testify as the threat of potential contempt of Congress proceedings loomed over them. I guess they lost all those other Congress people who would not testify, just like the politically inbred Jim Jordan of Ohio. Saw that Secretary Clinton took some questions after the deposition, and she said, listen, you all need to release it as immediately as you can. Representative Robert Garcia out of California, called on the House Oversight Committee to release a full transcript of the deposition within 24 hours. And Secretary Clinton said over and over again at the podium today after the deposition, I never met Jeffrey Epstein. I do not know Jeffrey Epstein. Reese, break this down for us. What are we looking at here? Is this just straight politics as usual from this committee and James Comer?
Of course it is. It's politics. It's the politics of distraction. And it's giving people something to focus on. Hillary Clinton has always been a lightning rod for Republicans. But if we're gonna interview first ladies, what about the first lady? Well, ain't no more East Wing jail. Because Trump just illegally bulldozed that shit. That shit's gone. That's where she was supposed to be. But wherever Melania is trolloping around Mar-a-Lago or wherever she's maybe taking up space, maybe she got a trailer on the West Wing. Why don't you haul her ass in front of Congress? Because she's the first lady and she's in the Epstein files. That's that chick. That's what I thought. Where is her testimony at? She's more closely connected to Jeffrey Epstein than Hillary Clinton. Now, Bill Clinton, I can't vouch for him because his ass was all up and through there, all up in the pictures and all kind of shit. So whatever happens to him, child, that's not my business, and I ain't got a problem with it. That's for the prosecutors to handle. If you don't have nothing for prosecutors, then we ain't got to hear from them, okay? But in terms of Hillary, why is she in it? Why is she in it? Why is she even involved? What about Howard Lutnick? What about the people in the Trump administration? Where is their testimony? How about where is Donald Trump's ass being hauled in front of a Congress hearing? Because he's one of the most mentioned, if not the most mentioned people in the Epstein files. And so that's why this shit is a joke. That's why this is a farce, because there are people that are very closely connected to Epstein that are very closely connected or currently serving in the federal government under Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And none of those people are being hauled before Congress, whether it's behind closed doors or in front. They won't even unredact names. They won't release all the files. They selectively take things out of the files. And so this is really a distraction. What we should be seeing from Congress is they should be voting on that war powers resolution from Representative Ro Khanna and Representative Thomas Massey to stop Donald Trump from his march to war with Iran without even so much as having to present a shred of evidence. Hell, even fake lying evidence. We know they just lie anyway, but at least do something. So this is what they want our attention on. But the reality is this administration is doing 55 fucked up things on a daily basis that they are not being held accountable for. That's what I'm more concerned about.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, Iran should be first and foremost in all of our minds right now, because you're absolutely right. And to those of you who have friends and family on the Gerald R. Ford or anywhere else, we're keeping you on our prayers, and we need to really, as you say, reevaluate where our focus is. We have a story out of Buffalo, New York. A refugee from Burma has been found dead in Buffalo, New York, days after being released from custody and dropped off at a coffee shop by the U.S. Border Patrol. Lord have mercy. Police say Nurul Amin Shah Alam, a blind father of two who spoke limited English, was found dead on Tuesday, February 24th, on Perry Street. He had been reported missing after his release on February 19th. The Erie County Sheriff's Office says Border Patrol agents took custody of Shah Alam after bond was posted on reduced charges tied to a 2025 arrest. Customs and Border Protection says agents gave him a, quote, courtesy ride, really, to a Tim Hortons near his last known address, and that he showed no signs of distress. The Erie County Medical Examiner ruled his death health-related, with exposure and homicide ruled out. And Cole asked Buffalo, what kind of medical exam? Buffalo's mayor, Sean Ryan, is calling the death preventable and is demanding answers as the investigation continues. Here's what he had to say, Sean Ryan's statement. And the statement is as follows, quote, the preventable death of Nurul Amin Shah Alam is deeply disturbing and a dereliction of duty by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. A vulnerable man, nearly blind and unable to speak English, was left alone on a cold winter night with no known attempt to leave him in a safe, secure location. That decision from U.S. Customs and Border Protection was unprofessional and inhumane. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection must answer for how and why this happened. Buffalo is a city that welcomes refugees and believes government should protect human dignity, not endanger it. U.S. Customs and Border Protection failed that basic standard, end quote. But of course they failed that basic standard. These racist brown shirts, pieces of men with tissue paper over the bottom of their faces to hide their shrunken manhood. Reese, this escalation and this war on people, particularly non-whites, I don't call them people of color. White people have color too. But, you know, when is this going to end? What do we have to do to make sure that it ends?
Well, first of all, we have to stop giving these people a permission slip. That's what people did when they voted, not only for Donald Trump, but when they voted for a Republican trifecta. Congress is, I don't want to say neutered, because that assumes that there's some passiveness to what's happening. They are actively complicit. They're actively actually co-conspirators in what is happening, because we see this administration operating with impunity, breaking the law in every possible way that you can break the law, and signing memos and signing executive orders that have no legal teeth, but they are empowered to do so because who's going to check them, boo?
That's exactly
and so as long as the people that are being, let me take it back. I was going to say, as long as people that are being victimized look like him, then this isn't going to change. But guess what? How long of a story was Alex Preddy and Renee Good?
That's right.
Those were two white names that I didn't even hear one time. And Donald Trump's We Shall Overcome White People Awards ceremony, also known as the State of the Union, where he talked about every white person that's ever come everything, and white people didn't get killed by this person, by that legal person, and all kind of shit. Alex Preddy and Renee Good were not talked about at all.
That's right.
During that 2 hours. And so it actually doesn't matter what these people who are being killed, hunted, kidnapped, trafficked look like, because this society, whether through action, which is voting, or inaction, which is keeping your dumb ass at home, regardless of the threat that we're seeing, have given a permission slip to lawlessness, to white nationalists, and anybody can get it. That's why I call it Trump Girl Crow, because anybody can get it. Not just black people, not just immigrants, not just undocumented, but anybody.
That's very true. That's very true. Before we go to break, we will note, and thank you, Reese, for expanding that to say society. That is today is the 14th anniversary of the killing of Trayvon Martin in Sanford, Florida. So we want to take a moment here and, of course, continue to think about Tracy Martin Sr. and Sabrina Fulton, of course, and particularly Sister Sabrina has done so much work. We know that they lost their child, 14 years ago today. So you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We will be right back.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Ryan Wilson, CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered here on the Black Star Network. Reese and I are here. If it's Thursday night, you already know how we gets down. But right now, we're going to turn it over to our sister, Brittany Noble. It's time for Headlines with Brittany Noble.
$7 million after a jury found that police wrongfully raided the home of a black family. A federal jury determined that a 2018 Chicago police raid at the Tate's family home at Back of the Yards Apartments violated their civil rights. Ebony Tate, her mother, Cynthia Eason, and her 4 kids, Imani, Lanaya, Legend, and Lakaya Booth were at home on August 9, 2018, when that incident occurred. CPD SWAT teams set off flashbang grenades outside the family's apartment before breaking down the door and repeatedly pointing assault rifles directly at the kids. The 4 children were 13, 11, 8, and 4 years old at the time. The jury found CPD officers guilty of acting improperly and using excessive force against the family. During the raid, Tate suffered a panic attack, and her mom was forced outside in front of her neighbors in only a T-shirt and underwear. And now one of the largest payouts from the city. The family, along with their lawyer, speak out about winning the case. They say each child will get $1 million in damages, while Tate and Easton will each get $750,000. The city says it disagrees with the verdict and it's exploring post-trial motions. Well, a car chase involving federal immigration enforcement officers led to a multi-vehicle crash Wednesday in Newark, New Jersey. Mayor Ross Baraka said on social media that ICE agents attempted to pull over a van in the state's largest city when the driver fled. He said the ICE agents gave chase, resulting in an accident involving several vehicles, including one carrying 3 kids. The driver of the van was injured and taken to the hospital. It was not immediately clear the extent of the driver's injuries or why the person was being pursued by ICE. Baraka said in an interview to reporters that he expects to hold agents accountable for their actions. He also said Newark police were not involved with ICE's investigation and only responded to the crash. A guest of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Minneapolis resident Aaliyah Rahman, was arrested by Capitol Police during the State of the Union after standing in the gallery. She's a U.S. citizen, was injured in January when federal immigration agents in Minneapolis forcibly removed her from her car. Omar is calling for an investigation, saying her guest was removed despite warning officers about her shoulder injuries and was charged with unlawful conduct for her brief protest during the president's speech. Rahman talks about the moments leading up to her arrest. Capitol Police say that Rahman began demonstrating around 10:07 p.m. That's nearly an hour before the president ended his remarks. And they also said that she ignored multiple requests to sit down. They go on to say it's illegal to disrupt the Congress and demonstrate in the congressional buildings. Colgate-Palmolive says it will ask investors to vote against a conservative shareholder proposal to remove diversity, equity, and inclusion criteria from its board selection process. While many companies scaled back DEI programs over the past year and political pressure, well, Colgate is actually standing firm, joining a small group of firms like Costco and Apple in maintaining its policies. In 2025 proxy statement, that company noted that 3 of its director nominees are members of underrepresented communities. Singer Brian McKnight is suing Ricky Smiley, radio host Karen Clark, and Urban One for defamation. McKnight is fighting back after he claims he was targeted by false and defamatory accusations made by his ex-wife, Julie McKnight, during an interview in 2025 on Foxy 107.1, owned by Urban One. Brian says his ex-wife, Julie, accused him of being a neglectful father and emotionally abusive towards her and her kids. The suit alleges that Clark amplified the accusations without any opportunity for the singer to defend himself. The suit says the defamatory allegations were rehashed in December of 2025 on the Ricky Smiley Morning Show podcast. McKnight says that the accusations severely damaged his career and reputation. He's asking for $25,000 for compensation and punitive damages and for ongoing damage to his career and reputation. Oliver Power Grant, a founding member of the hip-hop group the Wu-Tang Clan, has died. He was 52 years old. The Staten Island-based hip-hop collective confirmed his death Wednesday, February 25th, through an X post. Rest in power, the group wrote alongside a video showing interview clips of the foundational member. No further details were shared about Grant's cause or manner of death. On Tuesday, February 24th, Grammy-winning rapper and also a founding member of the group in 1990, Method Man reported Grant's death on Instagram. Greg?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brittany. And everyone make sure, and one of the exciting new shows has been rolled out here at the Black Star Network, Catch the Breakdown with Brittany Noble on the Black Star Network, Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Lot going on this weekend. Reese, we're expecting you on Channel 126, Sirius Urban View, where talk empowers and becomes action. On Saturday, from 3 to 4, period. The Reese Cobra
Show. 2 to 4, honey. I got 2 to 4. 2 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm tripping. You know, I know better than that. Plus, you be on with Clay, too. So, you know, we go all Reese all the time, though, because you got the full spectrum covered. So that's what I'm talking about. Shout out to Sankofa Video and Books. On Friday, tomorrow, there's a free screening at 10 a.m. If you're a high school student in the DMV or outside of DMV, if you can make it to the Lincoln Theater on U Street, the new film by Haile Gerima, 10 hours, 5-episode documentary. They're going to screen about an hour of it for high school students tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for free. Black Lions, Roman Wolves. We talked with Haile and Shriek Gerima on the Black Table for a new session at the Black Table. So check out that conversation. And that evening, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., there's a gala. It's a fundraiser and a support for Sankofa. Go to sankofa.com for more on that. So that does it for us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thanks, Roland, for letting us fly the mothership for this last hour, for trusting Reese and I. And thank everybody here. You know, Carol Call say, okay, get in that seat. Yes, ma'am. You know, I got to do that. So Roland will be back tomorrow. Have fun out there in L.A., California, the city of angels. Hollywood, say hello to NAACP and tell them stand up for black people. Anyway, we will see you all tomorrow. And Roland Martin Unfiltered, holla.